All right, Kevin, you tell us what to do. You're in charge.
All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Welcome to tonight's Internet Recharter Orientation. We hope the information that we share tonight will be used to enable your units to have a successful recharter this year. My name is Kevin Phillips, Assistant Council Commissioner for the Middle Tennessee Council. During tonight's call, please be sure that you're on mute during the presentation so that we don't have any audio issues. Towards the end, we'll have an opportunity for you all to ask some questions, and then you can unmute at that time. Let's go ahead and begin reviewing tonight's course objectives. The course objectives are to understand the importance of why we use a recharter system and the BSA and the need to complete the yearly requirement. And we'll also review simple steps to complete a charter and how to use the Internet Recharter app. And then finally, we will share what support resources are available for help and guidance. The course outline is we will begin with what a charter and why it is important to have it renewed each year. Then we will cover some successful keys to completing a unit recharter, followed by a new valuable useful Internet unit recharter timeline that was recently developed. And then we will cover a thorough understanding of the Internet Recharter 2.0 app and the important changes we've made since its first year of introduction last year. And then finally, I'll review some available recharter resources that can be found online. The next slide, what we want to talk about here, this is a list of recharter renewal resources that can easily be found on the National Commissioner webpage under Charter Renewal Resources. You can also scan the QR code, which will take you to the same website that is referenced on this slide. And I will show this slide again towards the end, but wanted everybody to know that you don't need to take screenshots or notes during the prezo, as everything that we're going to reference tonight will be on the web pages listed here on this slide. Now let's get started by reviewing some unit recharter background information. Annually, the Council enters into an agreement with the charter organization granting them a charter. This charter enables the organization or group to use the scouting program under adult leadership that they approve in order to accomplish its objectives and to serve the organization's youth and families. The annual charter agreement should be reviewed and signed by the chartered organization, the charter organization representative, and the unit committee chair. You'll see a small snippet of an actual charter agreement on this slide. The meeting that should take place before the units begin working on the recharter to confirm that the chartered org will be continuing support of the unit going into the next year. This form can be found online, and also included a link to it directly from the form on our resources page, which we'll go over at the end of the slideshow. All right, now let's take a look at some of the keys to a successful recharter, which will enable units to be successful with understanding the overall recharter process. There are two important notes I believe we can use to have a dramatic impact and drastically improve our recharter results for this year. Success begins with recharter preparation and awareness. Units should get started early on gathering the data and following a unit recharter timeline, which we have broken down into 3 separate stages for you. And then the next thing is to select a recharter champion for your unit to own the process from beginning to end and be the main point of contact for organizing and processing the unit Internet Recharter. If each unit starts with just those 2 items, then we'll be off to a great start for the Internet Recharter season coming up. I personally would like to suggest that committee chairs take this as an opportunity to assign a delegate in the MyDot scouting system to assist, if not be the main point of contact for the Internet Recharter. This allows the committee chair to focus their attention on normal operations of the unit and allows a new adult to get experience in helping the unit process the charter renewal. I cannot stress enough how important reviewing the online training materials are, as this will help answer many questions before you even get started, and also if you get stuck along the way. The updated Internet Recharter app is simple to use, and getting familiar by using the online resources will be extremely helpful once your Recharter window opens. 3, we want to try our best to avoid the usual Recharter defects that are major key to success. These will only delay posting of your charter, and we'll go into those detail more later. And then finally, work closely with your unit commissioner as needed for questions or problems that you cannot resolve during using the online resources. Now let's take a look at a screenshot from Organizational Manager section of My.Scouting on how to add a delegate for your unit. You will notice there are 2 options for assigning a delegate in the system. One is for the committee chair, and the other is for the charter organization rep. These delegates will have the same authority in My.Scouting to approve applications according to whichever role they are assigned. COR delegates have the ability to review and approve online adult applications, and Key 3 delegates have the ability to review and approve youth applications. Either one will enable the ability to access the online Recharter application system. All you have to do is click on the Add buttons to add a registered leader into these roles. And remember, assigning a delegate to assist with the Recharter has benefits for the future of your unit. This allows one person to focus their attention on completing the online Recharter, as many committee chairs and CORs are busy with other aspects of running the unit. This is also good for unit succession planning by allowing new adults to gain skills necessary to keep the unit running smooth. Now let's talk about the 3-stage timeline, which is created to help units understand the major steps in the Recharter process and show that you're able to begin the pre-work before the Internet Recharter opens, which will give you more time to focus on the data entry portion when that does open up. This timeline will help set expectations of what you need to do to plan in the next few months. First and foremost, you need to prepare and complete some tasks in advance. Number 2, we need to help with eliminating defects, which will only delay processing the charter. And 3, most of all, completing the charter renewal on time so that there are no issues with memberships lapsing. Please note that this document is primarily for units who are completing a normal traditional charter through their current charter org. There will be other scenarios when it comes to units who might be completing affiliation agreements or seeking new charter organizations, but for the most part, all of these steps above will be needed completed for all units. These timeline dates are recommended to keep units on track during their Recharter process and not required, as some councils may decide to adjust specific dates or tasks on the timeline to meet their needs. In stage 1, what you're looking at there is the data collection period. In stage 2, that's where we do our data entry portion. And then in stage 3, that's when the council starts to review and validate and resolves any defects with the charters. So let's take a closer look at stage 1. You will notice that the very first step is for a commissioner to meet with the unit Key 3 and review the timeline and resources available to help them through the process. This is a great way to begin the Recharter season. This way, the unit has a good understanding of their overall process, the timeline, and just to know that they have someone to go to that will be beneficial to them. An assigned unit Recharter champion greatly increases the likelihood of an on-time charter renewal. A Recharter champion should be assigned in every unit to be the lead during all 3 stages. This is usually the committee chair or a designated committee member. The committee chair will already have access to the Internet Recharter system. A committee member will need to give access by adding them as a delegate in My.Scouting. Units should take time to review all available online resources to ensure they are ready for the Recharter when it opens up on October 2nd. Membership inventories can begin before the Internet Recharter system opens and should be done on a regular basis to ensure all members are accounted for in My.Scouting. For units who go through Roundup in the fall, it may be necessary to do a second inventory shortly after all the new members have been added to the unit. And then we need to identify leaders who have youth protection training that's expiring and give them enough time to renew that before submitting the charter renewal. Otherwise, this could delay processing of your charter renewal. And then finally, the unit should attend any council or district provided recharter training. This will help with understanding any council or district specific directives. Completing a membership inventory is the one main task that can begin before the system opens for recharter. Membership inventories can be conducted throughout the year to ensure the roster is accurate. I like to think of this as a preventative maintenance, like changing the oil in your car, which if done regularly will avoid major problems in the future. The committee members should contact every family to verify members re-registering with the unit, trying to find out if they have any units where there are multiple registration in, and then verify their Scout Life subscription. And also, it's very important to communicate fees and the unit payment due date for those fees. The steps for exporting a unit roster are on this slide, which we can get sent out to you after this session. Youth protection training should be kept current when going through the recharter process, and working with your adult leaders to let them know if they expire during the process, it's vital to retake that to avoid delays. After running the report, make sure that the adults are notified and given a due date to renew their youth protection training. It's important to note that youth protection training expiring before the charter expiration date should be retaken for any renewals coming up in December or January. Now let's take a look at stage 2. It's important that we don't wait to log into the Internet Recharter system when it opens up on October 2nd. It's important that we access the system so that we can verify access to prevent any delays. Stage 2 is where we take all the data that we just collected in stage 1 and enter it into the Internet Recharter app and make roster updates for all your youth and adults for the upcoming year. It will be helpful for units to begin working on their data entry early in October, along with communicating and collecting membership fees from their families. The November 15th due date is recommended since so many charters are processed in the month of December. This gives council and the unit time to correct those defects and resubmit corrected information as needed before the charter expires. Noted earlier were references to charter defects. The most time-consuming and highest reason for charters posting delays is because of the impact of charter defects. If no defects are part of the charter when it is submitted, most charters can either be pre-posted or posted very quickly. To ensure that the most common defects are addressed prior to clicking the submit button, here are some most typical and avoidable defects we'd like to review with you. This list carefully with all units, including your commissioners, so that this knowledge is widely shared and understood prior to and during the recharter time period. It's also a very important document that should be part of the training process when you're discussing this with your Unit Key 3 members. I'm not going to go and review these in detail because they're quite straightforward. However, one that is often overlooked and most convenient to avoid is the processing of new applications through volunteers completing them online. Many errors are common when doing a paper application, followed by the uploading of all of the forms that you need to supply to council, which can take additional time and effort to complete. By encouraging new members to complete an online application resolves many potential problems and reduces overall time to get a person listed and registered with the unit. Finally, stage 3 is where you complete your final review and submit the charter for approval to the Key 3. The sooner this happens, the better, since almost 75% of charters are due in the month of December. It's important that we give council enough time to review the process your unit recharter. Oftentimes, there are defects, and units will need additional time to have those corrected before the end of the month when the charter expires. And then finally, the last step is to verify roster updates and My.Scouting after the council approves and the recharter processes. This will typically take place in January for a December charter renewal. Finally, as we look back at the full timeline, if units follow these 3 stages and the tasks in each one, then this will almost ensure that we stay on track for an on-time charter renewal. Let's talk about the Internet Recharter app itself. Last year's introduction of the new Recharter tool was an effort to reduce the number of steps involved and make simpler the overall approach to completing a unit recharter using the online process. However, with a limited shakedown process, the app had many bugs that caused several issues following its rollout. Since late last year, we've listened carefully to everyone's feedback. We created a task force, and all the various bugs that were reviewed, the suggested enhancements were identified, and many of the changes were implemented over the last 8 months with a significantly improved app now available for use this fall. So let's begin with a review of what some of those major enhancements were for this fall. Displayed is a copy of the timeline we reviewed earlier and highlighted as stage 2, since that's where most of the online charter activity takes place and will be the focus of the next few slides. Summarized in the steps listed will be the details I'll review with each of you today, so that not only you'll have a clear understanding of how to proceed, but also so that you can share this information with your units. And with this knowledge and software updates, we expect volunteers will appreciate the charter renewal can be simple, relatively easy, and that there is plenty of help if needed. This is a list of more important changes made to the Internet Recharter app, and I'll cover each one in a little detail so you'll understand the role that each change has in improving your experience with the new application. The first one is related to youth protection training. And since safety is one of our BSA's top priorities, units will not be able to submit a charter unless all listed adult volunteers have current YPT. In the previous version, it was only a warning enabling the unit to submit the charter, even though it was obvious that the charter could not be posted until all adults were up to date with their YPT. This change will minimize the defects sent to the council registrar. Something I hope all units will benefit from is that if someone needs to help beyond what their unit commissioner can provide, is direct one-on-one help with a council professional who will be able to view a unit's charter real time. It will also aid in resolving issues quickly and efficiently. I do recommend that you read the right user guide and the training videos before working in the Recharter app and before asking the registrar for help, as this will be extremely busy reviewing and trying to process all the recharters that have already come into the office. Most of all your questions can be answered very easily using those 2 resources on the internet. And then contacting the council registrar should be considered only after trying to work the issue yourself by using online resources and then going to your commissioner for support after that. Many times it's beneficial to print a copy of the updated roster to submit for review with other individuals. Last year that was not possible, but beginning this fall, that is a new feature you can see on this slide. There is an easy step that can be completed prior to submitting charter simply by clicking the print roster button as shown on this slide. That's one of the new enhancements. And then last year, there was both confusion and difficulty when managing registered members who serve in multiple units or other positions outside the unit. The task to manage that process is now much more straightforward and easy to follow. The first step is to click on the person's name as shown, then click on the Manage Member near the top where the drop-down menu will appear. Then click Mark as Multiple. If you click one time, Vance, it should pop up another picture. There you go. And that's what you'll see there when you're marking as multiple. Next, identify where this person is also registered and where they'll be paying their membership fee. Once the council, unit type, and unit member are shown, then you can click Mark as Multiple. And then finally, once that is complete, you will notice that there's a plus sign which will appear by that person's name. As a result, no fee will be tallied for that individual. A big help to units to avoid defects is the validation check, which is built into the software to ensure the right number of leaders are registered and not too many leaders are listed in key positions such as unit leader or committee chair. And it also checks to make sure that the criminal background check forms are turned in for adult volunteers. You will note in this example that too many Cub Masters have been listed and that at least two committee members must be listed as well. Once all of those issues with the red error messages are addressed, the submit button will become functional. Otherwise, these errors will need to be corrected before the system will enable the submit function. And because exploring posts and clubs use a different and fewer positions than traditional units, there was a lot of confusion among those units last year. This year, along with a completely updated user guide for all units, there is also an addendum available to manage unique differences for posts and clubs, explaining in sufficient detail how to handle each difference. Another item that caused confusion and concern was how to address the charter approval. Typically, the charter representative is responsible and should approve the charter. The software is written to enable that any member of the Key 3 or Key 3 delegate can approve the charter. It is highly encouraged that all units prior to the approval process work with the charter org and charter org rep to determine who will approve the charter. It is expected that this role will reside with the charter organization rep. This helps to enable transparency between the unit and the charter partner. It also helps to build and increase the relationship between both organizations. And since the approval is done by email, this eliminates the need to meet face-to-face between both parties and obtain the signature. So completing this task is now easier than it ever was before. However, there may be circumstances where the COR or institutional head are not able to approve the charter. In that case, the submittal is not held up. Any other member of the Key 3 or delegate can complete the approval. And there was also an issue last year that has been fixed that the Key 3 delegate was not included on the email. That has since been corrected. The last item on the list is something that we can all appreciate, which is a demo tool. Last year, a sandbox was available to learn how the Internet Recharter process worked, but unfortunately, it was not available after a few months. This year, a different process was developed to help everyone become familiar with how the Recharter app works, and we believe many of us will be pleased to have that access. You can be sure to visit the URL highlighted for instructions and access the codes. The demo tool will not expire and will be available throughout the entire Recharter window and beyond. This link to the demo is also on that main website that I mentioned on the resources on one of the first few slides, and also on one of the slides at the very end, so that you have easy access to it. Now let's transition to begin with how to log into the Internet Recharter system. There are two ways to log in, and each method leads to the same website. The first one, of course, is logging in through My.Scouting, going to Account and Internet Advancement, and the other one is clicking directly on the advancements.scouting.org website, which will take you to the same place. A big convenience to users is that no matter which of these two sites that you use, the same login credentials are used, and they are the same ones that you use for My.Scouting. The other convenient part of the process is that no access codes are required, which was introduced as a new feature last year. And then once you get into the system, you'll see the main screen, and this is where you'll complete about 85 to 90% of most of the work on this one screen. As noted on the right-hand side, changes to the roster are made. Youth protection and criminal background check forms are checked and are displayed for the adults themselves. Scout life can be selected here. The adult leader positions can be updated. New members can be added, as well as deleting members that can be completed as this year improvements were made for those individuals that are registered in either multiple units or in different positions within the district council. Another point I like to make here is at the end is that there are two important training tools available on the National Commissioner webpage under Recharter Resources. Although I noted them earlier, I just want to make sure everybody understands there is an updated user guide, and then also a new training video prepared and hosted by our National Registrar, Donna Arnold. And at the end of this review, we'll go back over that slide and I'll share with you the website, which will have those valuable resources available to you. All right, the first and often most important task is the roster update and managing your multiples. This is managed by clicking on an individual's name, then clicking on Manage Member tab that you see here on the screen, and then a drop-down menu will appear for the options to address. The next two tasks are to verify that each registered adult has a current YPT and a criminal background check form on file. If these are not both green for those individuals, a follow-up is required prior to submitting the charter. And you can see the green check marks underneath the youth protection and the CBC are there. One of them is red, so it will not allow you to submit until that has been corrected. And then the next task will be to confirm which scouts receive Scout Life, and there's a little toggle button there that you can use, and it goes from left to right to assure that it's selected and the fee is accounted for properly. And then the next task is either to add or delete members, and this can be done by using the online method or submit a paper copy by uploading or turning in to our council office. Deleting a member is as simple as highlighting a member, clicking the Manage Member button, and then clicking Remove from Recharter. Finally, if an adult leader position changes position, that is handled a little differently. In the far right-hand column, there's an angled pencil icon. You'll click on that, and following the drop-down menu appears from that screen. Positions can be easily changed for your registered members. And then we get into the payment screen. That is the second of the two screens that are part of the Internet Recharter app. On this screen, it covers two important items. One is the payment summary, and the second is the payment method. It's important to note that the Middle Tennessee Council wants every unit to make payments directly to the council instead of using the Internet Recharter credit card or ACH methods. The lead person completing the charter should verify that everything looks correct on the payment summary, and this includes the total number of youth and adults who want Scout Life, the charter fee, first-time scouter fees, any specific council fees, including insurance, and anything else in the payment summary. Because payment information can be the source of many defects that can be resolved early, it's best to ensure everything is correct on this page prior to hitting the Submit button. The second important step on this page is to choose the payment method, and you will note there are three options. As noted earlier, checks to the Middle Tennessee Council is the preferred method of payment, and this will ensure accurate payment following council verification. The Middle Tennessee Council will ensure any overpayments are either refunded in a timely manner or placed in the unit registration account. If there are any questions for how to specifically address any of these options, please refer to the user guide and training video. And then the final step of the entire process following clicking the Submit button is that the charter needs to be approved by a member of the Key 3 or Key 3 delegate. As noted earlier, it's recommended that this be the charter representative complete the approval to ensure transparency and encourage a good relationship with the charter organization. However, since each member of the Key 3 and delegate get a copy of the letter by email, any of those people are eligible to approve the charter. It is best to have the discussion during the time of the charter update so that this step is completed promptly and the charter is received by the council office in a timely manner. And then here's the charter renewal resources that we spoke about at the beginning of the presentation. This can easily be found on the Commissioner webpage under Charter Renewal Resources, and then it can also be found by clicking the URL listed at the top of this slide or by scanning the neat little QR code there on the same slide with your phone. The National Commissioner Internet Recharter webpage includes a link to the Recharter app that we've already talked about earlier, all of the timeline information that we discussed earlier. It also has the updated user guide, and then it also has the updated training video. In addition to those things, there are some frequently asked questions that I know that I went through with a fine-tooth comb myself last year and helped answer some of my questions when I was processing my own Unix recharters. And also there's a summary of updates and enhancements that have been made since last year. And finally, at the very bottom of that page, you'll see instructions to access the demo tool that we talked about earlier. And that demo tool is just like you logging into the system, and you can go in there and make changes and updates and play around, and you don't have to worry about messing anything up. If the units have specific issues, the best process to surface those issues and get resolution is by working with your local commissioners, who can lift up any issues to council, and if necessary, we can submit a ticket to national. So here's some of our takeaways. As we wrap up this presentation, I want to leave you with these. Number one, be sure to get started early. Use the timeline that was shared, and be sure that you do your homework and review those online resources. Next is the Recharter app has been significantly updated and will be much easier to use this year. Number three, to better ensure that a defect-free charter is submitted, be sure to review the list provided and resolve all known defects prior to submitting the charter to the council. And then finally, do your very best to complete the charter prior to the expiration date. Like I said, we're hoping that we can get a lot of the December charters submitted by November 15th, so that the council registrar has their needed time to do their work to post the charter before the expiration date. Thank you. I hope that you all found this information helpful and useful, although many changes were completed to improve the performance of the app for this year. New issues or ideas will probably surface. I expect those improvements to be made on a continual basis to help ensure a smooth recharter process as we can all hope to be achieved. And then good luck as you work to complete your charters over the next few months. And thank you for participating in the orientation tonight. We'll take a few minutes to answer some questions if I can answer them. If not, I will try to do my best to get the answer for you. If you don't want to stay for the question portion, you're welcome to drop. You don't have to stay on. So now you can unmute if you would like to answer or ask any questions, and we'll do our best. Raise your hand using the little icons at the bottom.
Are there any questions? This is Vance. I'm jumping back on here. Are there any questions? I mean, we want to respect those times.
There's one in chat, Kevin.
Yeah, the CBC is a criminal background check that must be submitted for all adults if they're new applicants. So if you're processing a paper application, then there's an attached form that they must sign so that we can process a criminal background check. If they do that online, it's part of the online process, and the criminal background check will be automated, but they have to agree to that.
Kevin, I appreciate you doing this. Apparently you answered everybody's questions.
I hope so. It's hopefully we'll have a good year,
There's another one in chat.
Season for Recharter.
Oh, no, there was. She thanked you. Okay. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
There you
go. Feel free, if you have my contact information, well, let me just I'll put my email in the chat. If you have any specific questions, feel free to send them directly to me. The timeline, the timeline is actually available on the Recharter webpage. So if you want to go view the timeline, there's a link to it right there on the Internet, the National Commissioner webpage there. it's where that QR code will take you, and you can go in and view the guide and the timeline all together. The majority of the information, somebody asked if you can send out the slides. The majority, like I said, the majority of all this information, there is a Internet Recharter timeline and guidebook on the website, and all of the other resources on that web page would answer any questions that this slide deck would have. So it's best that you go there, and you'll have everything you need for your recharter.
Kevin, thank you. We're going to make sure this is available sometime tomorrow, and we'll get the information out there. And then, we'll work with the commissioner staff to make sure they've got everything they need. And I would like to thank you and Karen both for serving on the National Commissioner staff, making sure that Middle Tennessee Council is well represented, and as well as we get our information heard throughout the country. So thank y'all for both for what you're doing. Kevin, excellent presentation. And
thanks, Vance.
Okay. There, somebody cut and paste the address for you in the chat too. So thank y'all both. And I think and no one else has any questions, or comments, I think we stand adjourned. Everybody
have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank y'all.